Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and today I am driving a 1993 Honda Del Sol SI. Up front is a 1.6 liter inline 4, and down below is a 5-speed manual transmission. Now I am super excited to be driving this here Del Sol for a couple of reasons. First of all, I've always found that these are very interesting looking cars. They look like they should be mid-engined, but they're not. They look like an MR2 competitor, and they kind of were, but also kind of weren't. The second reason is the fact that this is the SI, which was the upper trim, more enthusiast-oriented Del Sol as opposed to the standard one. But before we get back to the rest of the video, if you are interested in helping out the channel, please click some of the links in the description below from our awesome sponsors. We have Con Plates, which is a suction cup license plate mount. We have Cash for Cars if you want to sell your vehicle in the easiest way possible. And we also have the fixed OBD2 Bluetooth sensor that will pair right to your smartphone. Every purchase or quote goes to helping the channel, and it's greatly appreciated. But let's get back to the video. Let's get back to that 1.6 liter inline 4 under the hood. Well, makes about 125 horsepower, which by modern standards isn't crazy, but you have to remember that this is a very light car. And because this is an SI, it got the 1.6 liter D16 as opposed to the D15 found in the regular Del Sol. And this got VTEC where the regular Del Sol did not have VTEC. So all of that together gives it about 25 more horsepower than the regular Del Sol, which had about 100 horsepower. Not bad. Not bad, little Del Sol. Not bad at all. It's fun to drive. You definitely feel the VTEC. It doesn't throw me out of the car, but you definitely do get that little extra emphasis, and it's fun to rev out. It is fun to beat the snot out of. It is fun to take the Del Sol's lunch money. Give me that lunch money. Love that. Super easy to rev match, by the way, too. Like I said, paired to it is a 5-speed manual transmission. The clutch isn't quite what I expected out of a Honda. It's a little bit numb, but with 156,000 miles, I can't really knock the car too hard for that. It's had a long life. But what does feel super Honda is the shifting feel. It clicks right into gear. It's very satisfying, and I know pretty much without looking at it what gear I'm in, which is fantastic and a trademark of Honda, even to this day, which is great. Last but not least, the Del Sol is front-wheel drive, which is something I wouldn't expect out of a car that looks like this. Again, I feel like it looks mid-engine, but it's not. The engine is actually up front like a traditional Civic. So with that out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have a couple of gauges. On the far left, I actually get a little outline of the Del Sol. Great touch, especially given the fact that this was based off the Civic of the time. Great touch that they actually added a Del Sol instead of just a Civic, and a clock. Then I have my tachometer. What I love about the tachometer is it has these red danger lines when you get up to 7,000 RPM, which is the red line, and I love that. I just wish that when you went past 7,000, Kenny Loggins' Danger Zone came on the radio. Maybe someone can wire that in with Arduino or something, or Cherry Pie. Then to the right, I have my speedometer, and then I have my fuel and coolant temperature to the very far right. Oddly enough, up above the gauge cluster, I have 4 switches. On the left, I have my auxiliary light, cruise control, rear defrost, and hazard switch, which is a very weird placement and kind of hard to see around the steering wheel. The steering wheel is not telescoping, so it might be different for other people. The steering wheel does look very Honda. This is very clearly a Civic steering wheel. It has the resume and cancel for the cruise control on the right. It's really nice that the SI got cruise control. And to the left of me, I just have a circular climate control vent, and on the door, I have my power mirrors, power windows, and power locks. What's interesting is that I have 3 power window switches, one for either side, and then another one for the rear window. How flippin' cool is that? That is such a cool feature because we do have a Targa top we'll talk about a little bit later on. But if you just want some breeze, you don't want to take the Targa top fully off, open up that rear window. That is the coolest thing ever, and this has to be the smallest car to come with a rear window like that. Moving into the center, I do have 2 climate control vents. This reminds me of like Ford Escorts. Then I have my climate controls. Very, very basic here. Fan speed, where to send it, and temperature, and that is it. I have an AC button, but that's about it. Then I do have an aftermarket radio because every radio from the 90s was pretty bad. And I can close that off if I'd like. I really like that feature. I think in the 90s, there was a sort of emphasis on shutting things off and making things more driver-oriented with panels and things like that. I'm thinking of like the Saab night panel or the Honda S2000, which was a 2000s car. But the Honda S2000, you could close the radio as well to make it look clean. Then we come to the shifter. Like I said, the shifter feels great, has a nice weight in my hand, clicks right into gear, and is very satisfying when I do downshift properly. Then we do have the handbrake off to the right, and we have this nice little cubby that has a 12-volt outlet in it, as well as just a little ashtray. Nothing really too crazy here. However, we don't have any cup holders, so because of that, the Del Sol fails the big friggin' bottle test. Now we gotta talk about the seats. The seats are actually decently comfortable, and yet they are still decently sporty. I fit in them, which is a huge bonus. And just overall, I love that this interior is pretty much all stock. It looks straight out of the 90s, and I always love a good time capsule. But now, since we don't have back seats, we do have a little bit of storage back there, but nothing crazy. Let's go hop around back, and we'll talk about the trunk, and then we'll talk about the Targa top. All right, so around the back of the Del Sol, have a little key here to pop it, and we are in. Now, the strut does not want to stay up. Unfortunately, after almost 30 years, I wouldn't either. But nice, huge trunk. I mean, this trunk is bigger than any Civic you'll find, of course, because there's no back seats, and you can fit plenty. But what's interesting, if I can hold it with this is actually a holder. You can see it goes around the outside. You actually put the Targa top in here, and then you can still lift it up and get to your stuff under the Targa top when you have it off, which is just such a cool feature that Honda included in the back of the Del Sol. But again, this has to be one of the largest trunks I've ever seen in a Honda. But now let's talk about the Targa top. So now let's talk about the Targa top and how to remove it. So you have to go inside the vehicle, and there's these little latches that you have to pull. And once those are unlatched, the Targa top comes right off, which is super, super cool and gives the car a very open air experience, which is super 90s, but also you can't really find many front wheel drive Japanese imports that had this sort of feature. This was a really rare feature. Besides the Toyota Mark IV Supra, which came around this era, I can't think of many others. And this was a lot cheaper than the Supra. Now we gotta talk about the looks besides the Targa top, and I really like the look of the Del Sol. Like I've been saying this entire video, however, I feel like this car should have been mid-engined. It looks like a mid-engine car. It has that sort of back to it. It looks like a flat area where an engine compartment would be. But besides that, because we'll get back to that in my ending thoughts, I think the Del Sol looks cool, it looks unique, and every time I see one on the road, which is getting less and less, I always smile and stare a little bit longer than I should. I think they're fun, interesting cars. But now let's get to my final thoughts here on the Del Sol SI. Well, I am split 50-50. I think Honda missed a great opportunity to make a baby NSX. They could have made a little 4-cylinder mid-engine MR2 competitor, especially up against like the SW20. That would have been so cool and so unique. And yet they stuck with, well, what they knew, which was a Civic with a chopped off back. And so I almost have this little funeral in my mind of what this car could have been. However, let's talk about what this car is, and that is great. This car is fantastic. It's so fun to drive. It's so fun to rev out. Like I said when I did that poll, I was slightly joking, but also not joking, of this car is fun to take its lunch money. It's fun to beat up, and it just takes it. That VTEC almost simulates getting aggravated. You're pushing it, and then you just feel the engine go, all right, if you really want it, let's dance. And it gives you that extra oomph, that sort of strength you didn't know it had. I love that feeling. The Del Sol SI is definitely something to seek out. It's just so fun to drive, and they're getting more and more rare. The EG Civics of this era are so played out. But this is something different. That rear window that goes down is one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a 90s Honda. The D16 is great. It's a great engine. It really, really is. The shifting feel is out of a Honda, which is up at the top, if not the best shifting feel. And you get a Targa top. A Targa top. What other Honda has a Targa top? That is so cool. Speaking of cool, the owner, Andrew, is absolutely awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew, for letting me take this Del Sol out. And thank you, Chris, for finding this Del Sol, because if it weren't for Chris, I wouldn't have had this opportunity either, and so I have to say thank you to him. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.